get one of those things. What is it they call? You just something to help you don't have to work the land as much. You just put this kind of a piece of equipment. It kind of breaks the ground plants all at the same time. Not a good preparation. You need to disc. You need to get the soil prepared. You need to put in nitrogen. You need to put in maybe herbicides if you use those. You need to put in fertilizer. All these things. You got to make sure the moisture temperature is good or the weather's going to be good. You do all this stuff to get the field ready. You don't just throw it in there. So the ground and the seed has to have a nice home, and knowledge has to have a nice home in the brains of your students. You prepare them for that. Now you can have things. They talk in here about outlines and readings and texts. You got to make sure that all those texts are accessible to your students. I've had people use in science and stuff, they'll use the Spanish language text just so students who are actually pretty fluent in Spanish can be sure to read about the content in their own language before they do it. You may not have students that can read Spanish even though they speak Spanish. I have mixed feelings. People talk about highlighting the text. I remember years ago I taught a course in how to study better in college, and people that highlight too much end up just highlighting the whole text. So teaching students the skill, any student, it's not just ESL, any student, teaching them the skill knowing what is the key point in the paragraph. First line, last line, conclusion. That's really a skill, being able to scan and look for information, do it quickly. They mention here taped text, and that's something I think would be interesting. What if you as a teacher or you had a student read the lesson and put it on audio tape on a file that students could, say, access from home on their laptop? If you have one-on-one technology, you could have students do the reading and then other students could go through and they could listen to it. Like I'm doing a little bit here. I'm giving you a video presentation about this chapter. I could just say, just read it, but I have preferences on things like this. Mention study guides in here. It's okay, study guides. I'd be careful piling too much on. I like to go for the key elements. Don't give them so much homework that they get overwhelmed trying to just deal with all the text. Just like an adapted text, if you get a book that has the basic information and uses a little simpler vocabulary, if students are comfortable with that, fine. But if you're reading something, you don't want to give them a little kid's book saying, A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens for third graders, and you give it to an eighth grader. That's something to be embarrassing. Notes. Some people make notes of on the lesson. You may put something in the margin if you can write clearly, or if you want to type it as a commentary, or if you put it on there and then send it to students, and then it's like the comment section on Microsoft Word. Students, you'll have a little line going there, and it'll explain a concept that might be confusing to them, and then leave a place where they can ask questions back, either in class or somehow. Now, there's some teaching scenarios presented here, and they actually use the lesson preparation, the SIOP model, to evaluate it. So you get the lesson that's on page 47. Not a bad little format here. It's pretty good for getting organized. This right here. In the back of this text, you'll have all kinds of different ways that the lesson can be prepared. They have examples. You can fill in the blank. You can make copies. Whatever is roomy enough for you. Sometimes it's cool to put on a computer because then you can insert stuff and print it out as needed year after year. And the idea is that you prepare a lesson and then you don't have to prepare it again. You have a good generic lesson that hits most of the key points. You can make some changes to it, alterations to meet the needs of a particular group that comes in. Maybe you have a group come in that only speaks Arabic and you want to make the lesson a little more enriching or interesting. So you don't start out every day coming up with a lesson from nothing. Now, when I do these lessons, I generally do on my own videos each semester. That's why there's so darn many on YouTube. So you can find this same video several times if you look long enough. I'd warn you though, there's Tracy Glenn and Glenn Tracy. And one Glenn Tracy does off-color comedy for truck drivers in North Carolina. Guy, I remember running across 8-track tapes. This guy had hundreds of them, or at least he had 50 in the series or something. Really bad. It's like if you took Hee Haw and had all the dirty and put in dirty jokes. But what was interesting about it was there were people. Tracy and Glenn are both first and last names. There were artists and engineers and all kinds of cool people. It had my name one way or the other, you know, singers from Ireland and stuff. And I thought I had a unique name. So anyhow, so they give some grading here. They kind of go through and they say Mrs. Chin, Mrs. Hargrove, and Mr. Henson scored differently and could have done a little better this way or that way. That's why I like this book. It's useful. And it's hands-on and practical. That's why I like the lesson preparation here. Also, it talks about lesson preparation. You got the curriculum guides you have your textbooks. You may have state or national guidelines for mathematics or social studies from, say, Nebraska State Department of Education or some international group. Also, I don't really have it on me right now. Oh, it's right over there. But there's actually a series of these. I think you have to pay to get them. But I bought these a long time ago. It's called Integrating ESL Standards into Classroom Practice. And this is grades K through 2. And they have examples of lessons, things where kids do drawings, or they, here's right over here is a lesson. And so if you happen to be a first, second grade teacher and you teach strictly ESL, these might be useful. If you do it online, you have to join TESOL, that organization, teaching English to speakers of other languages. But it's pretty useful. I wouldn't buy all of them. I bought all of them to show people, but they're useful. And they're called Integrating the ESL Standards into Classroom Practice. Okay. All right. Lots of other supplementary materials that you should have available. Books in the library are useful. Obviously, the internet has tons of stuff. There's that site where if you pay for stuff, but then it's teachers paying teachers, and you get a full lesson, and that's very nice too sometimes. I don't use it because I'm not going to buy all those just to show them as examples, but alas, I'm a little poor. But anyhow, I just wanted to let you know about all this stuff, and I hope this is a little bit of information about lesson preparation. I'm not really, the next one on background doesn't really thrill me too much. It's kind of a weird logic they use. They're studying how to talk about the atomic bomb and Truman's decision to drop it in 1945. And it's just kind of weird. So you'll hear about that when we get to it. Okay, well, that's that. I'm not going to talk about the programs right now, but you got a handout on the programs. It's in color, and you can look at those, and you'll probably see your program in one of the first 2 or 3. The first page you'll probably have it. Pull out, push in, ESL line, or you might have, what's the one? It's, sheltered instruction, which is basically what PSYOP is. Then there are others, but most of those are bilingual stuff, and we're not really going to do those. Okay, thank you, and I'm out of here.